Bella blinked against the soft morning light spilling through the hotel curtains. Her head throbbed slightly. Her dress from last night lay crumpled on the floor, and the expensive sheets smelled faintly of cologne. Warm, clean, masculine. She wasn't in her room, and she wasn't alone. The other side of the bed was empty now, but it had clearly been slept in. A faint indent on the pillow. A navy blue suit jacket draped over the chair. And on the nightstand, a silver cufflink engraved with a tiny lion crest. Her heart skipped. Images flickered in her mind, twinkling fairy lights from the wedding venue, champagne glasses clinking, music pulsing under the stars. And him, a stranger with kind eyes and a quiet confidence. Their conversation had felt easy, too easy, and when they danced it was like the world had faded away. She had let go of everything. For one night, Bella stopped being the careful, responsible office worker. She let herself feel alive again, desired, seen, but now, no name, no number. Not even a goodbye. Bella wrapped the sheets around herself and stood by the window, heart pounding. What had she done? Who was he? She had believed it was a one-time reckless mistake at a romantic wedding, but the cufflink felt deliberate, expensive, almost personal. She thought it was just one crazy night with a stranger. But what if he wasn't a stranger at all? What if he was someone she was never meant to forget? Bella Taylor was the kind of woman who planned everything. Her meetings, her meals, even her feelings. At 29, she was known at the office as the one who never missed a deadline, never joined the gossip, and never let emotions interfere with logic. But beneath that composed surface was a heart that had once been badly broken. Her last relationship had left scars, quiet ones. The kind that made her flinch when someone got too close. Since then, Bella had built walls. Love was no longer a priority. Her life was simple, safe, and entirely on her terms. Until that night, she had only gone to the wedding out of obligation. Her college roommate was marrying into a wealthy family, and the event was the kind of fairy tale celebration Bella usually avoided. But something, or someone, about that evening pulled her in. A stranger. A dance. A spark she hadn't felt in years. And then he vanished. She tried to push the memory aside. She had a new project starting that week. An important partnership with a rising tech firm. Her company had been trying to land this deal for months. Bella was leading the internal team. What she didn't know, what no one had told her, was that the CEO of the partner company had just returned from a long overseas expansion project. Young, brilliant, and notoriously private, David Cross had built his empire with quiet precision and ruthless focus. He rarely appeared in public, avoided interviews, and never mixed business with pleasure, except maybe once. At the wedding, he had introduced himself only as David. No last name, no title, just a man looking for a break from the constant pressure of being watched. For one night, David let himself be ordinary. No deals, no expectations. Just a woman who didn't know who he was, and somehow that made her unforgettable. Neither of them had planned to cross paths again. But fate, as it turns out, had other plans. She thought she'd left that night behind. But what happens when the man from her past walks into her boardroom? It had started with a glance. Bella stood by the open bar, her fingers wrapped around a half-full champagne flute, eyes scanning the twinkling lights strung above the garden. The wedding reception buzzed around her, laughing guests, clinking glasses, music rising and falling, like waves. And then she saw him, tall, composed, striking in a way that felt quiet rather than loud. He didn't move like someone trying to impress. He just was. Their eyes met for a moment too long. He smiled, softly, knowingly, and somehow that smile pulled her in. They found each other again near the dance floor. Neither knew how the conversation started, but it flowed like they'd done it 100 times before. Not surface-level small talk, but real things. Regret, loneliness, dreams they didn't admit out loud. He introduced himself simply as David. No company name, no backstory, just David. For a few hours, Bella let herself forget the rules she lived by. She let herself laugh, sway to music under the stars, and feel something she hadn't felt in years. Safe, wanted, alive. And when he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. That night wasn't just passion. It was tender, unhurried, like two people trying to memorize a feeling they weren't sure they'd ever find again. The way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the world, unraveled her carefully guarded heart. But morning came like a curtain call. The bed was warm, but empty. No note, no trace of his last name. Just a single cufflink left behind, almost like a question. Bella dressed in silence, heart heavy. She told herself it was nothing, a moment of weakness, a mistake, or maybe, just maybe, a necessary exception to a life too tightly controlled. She would never see him again. That's what she believed, until 3 days later, when she walked into a high-level business meeting, and David, the man from that night, was sitting at the head of the table, staring straight at her. She had tried to forget him. But what if that night had meant everything to him, too? 3 days. That's how long it took for her carefully built world to spin off its axis. Bella adjusted the collar of her blazer, nerves quietly humming beneath her professional facade. Today marked the kickoff meeting for one of the most important cross-company projects of her career. She'd spent weeks preparing. This partnership, if successful, would elevate her department, and maybe her future. The meeting room buzzed with quiet anticipation. Executives from both sides were gathering. Bella took her seat near the front, flipping open her notes. She didn't notice him at first. Her eyes were focused, determined, locked onto the agenda, until a stillness fell over the room. Heads turned. Doors opened, and there he was. David. Not in a black tux, not with that easy midnight smile, but in a sharp navy suit, crisp white shirt, and the kind of quiet authority that turned heads without trying. He stepped forward like he belonged at the head of the table. Because he did. "Thank you all for being here," he said, voice calm, assured. "I'm David Cross, CEO of Novatech. I'll be overseeing this collaboration personally." Bella's pen slipped from her fingers, her breath caught in her throat, her stomach twisted. She sat frozen, every word of the presentation blurring on the screen behind him. CEO, Novatech, David Cross. He wasn't just some charming guest at a wedding. He was the man whose name appeared in tech journals, Forbes lists, and business awards. A billionaire innovator. A public figure who somehow had managed to become a ghost in her private life. He had known. The whole time. Who he was, what this meant. And yet he never told her. Bella didn't hear much of the meeting after that. Her thoughts spun wildly. One night, one mistake, and now he was everywhere. In her office, her project, her future. Was it all a game to him? She caught his eyes once, across the room. He looked at her, not with arrogance, but with something far more dangerous. Familiarity. Regret. A silent question, but she wasn't ready to answer it. Bella tried to act normal, professional, untouched. But every time she stepped into a room and found David already there, her heart forgot how to beat correctly. She avoided his gaze, focused on the spreadsheets, the timelines, anything but the man who now occupied far too much of her mind, and who stood at the center of her career's biggest opportunity. He, on the other hand, didn't seem shaken at all. Not in the way she had hoped or feared. But then, little things. After one meeting. He lingered near the door as she packed her things. "I wasn't pretending," he said softly. She looked up, startled. "I know this is complicated, but that night, I meant every moment of it." Bella didn't respond. She couldn't. Her world was already tangled enough. What did he expect? Her to say that she could trust him, just like that? But his words stayed with her. The next few days were a battle of restraint. Bella showed up early, worked late, buried herself in tasks, but her composure cracked in quiet moments. She'd catch glimpses of him through glass conference walls, or hear his laugh down the hall. Not loud, not showy, but real, familiar, like it had been that night. And it hurt, because he hadn't told her the truth, because he had left, because even now, he was still David Cross, CEO, tech visionary, untouchable. And she was just someone who should have known better, but he didn't stop trying. He started asking to review certain parts of the project with her one-on-one. Not to manipulate, but to understand, to be near her, to show her, piece by piece, that he wasn't hiding anymore. "I didn't tell you who I was because, for once, I wanted to be seen for something other than my title," he told her one evening. "And you, Bella, you saw me. I wasn't ready for that." She stood frozen, arms crossed, heart battling logic. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her hated how much she already did. Could one night really mean something to a man like him? She built walls to protect herself. But what if the one man who could break them down was the same one who shook her trust? The scandal broke on a Wednesday. Bella was at her desk, halfway through her morning coffee, when her phone buzzed, again and again. Notifications, mentions. A link someone sent with a hesitant, "Have you seen this?" She clicked and froze. A headline blared across her screen. "Mystery woman spotted with Novatech CEO at private wedding. Is David Cross off the market?" Beneath it, a blurry photo. Her, him, laughing under twinkling lights. A shot clearly taken without their knowledge that night, but unmistakably intimate. Bella's chest tightened as a rush of panic set in. By noon, the office was humming with whispers. Colleagues glanced at her, not maliciously, but curiously, speculatively, and that hurt even more. Because until now, her work had always spoken for her. She wasn't the woman in the photo. She was Bella, reliable, quiet, professional. Now she was something else. That afternoon, she stormed into the rooftop terrace outside the office, needing air, space. But David was already there, waiting, as if he knew she'd come. "You said no one would know," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't know someone had taken a photo," he replied gently. "Believe me, Bella, I would never—" "You shouldn't have let it happen," she snapped. "Any of it. That night, this project, me. He took a step forward. I didn't let it happen. It did happen, and I'm not sorry for it. She looked away, hurt and confused. David exhaled slowly. You want the truth? I didn't tell you who I was because I didn't want to be him that night. The CEO, the public figure, the brand, that wedding. It was full of people who only saw status. But you looked at me like I was just a man. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Real. Bella's throat tightened. He stepped closer. It wasn't a game. I didn't plan it. But I can't. Forget it. I don't want to. She stared at him, the war inside her louder than ever. Part of her still reeled from the public exposure, the betrayal. But another part, deeper, quieter, remembered the way he held her like she mattered. The way he listened, the way her heart had come alive in his arms. Could love really begin with one reckless night? Could she trust him? And herself? Now she had to choose. Walk away to protect herself, or take a leap of faith into something terrifyingly real. Weeks passed. The whispers quieted. The article faded into the background. But the chaos it left behind still lingered in Bella's chest. She had kept her distance. Not because she didn't feel something, but because she felt too much. Every time she thought of David, his words, his sincerity, the look in his eyes, her heart wavered. How could something that began so suddenly, so irrationally, feel more real than anything before? But slowly, quietly, something inside her began to shift. It happened in the small things. The way she smiled without realizing it when his name came, up in meetings. The way her heart still fluttered when she remembered his confession on the rooftop. The way she missed him, not just the version from that one night, but the man she had come to know afterward. Honest, steady, vulnerable beneath the surface. Maybe it wasn't about how they started. Maybe it was about what they chose now. So when she received the invitation to Novatech's major product launch, their most anticipated event of the year, Bella hesitated for only a moment. Then she said yes. The night of the event, the venue, sparkled with lights and quiet luxury. The stage was framed by towering screens and a sea of faces, investors, media, employees. At the center stood David, calm and composed in front of a mic, addressing the crowd with confidence. Bella slipped in near the back, unnoticed at first, until he saw her. In the middle of a sentence, his words slowed, just for a heartbeat. His eyes found hers, and the world around them disappeared. He smiled. That same quiet, devastating smile from the wedding. But this time, it held something more. Relief. Hope. Maybe even love. When the applause came and David stepped off the stage, Bella moved too, through the crowd, past the cameras and clinking glasses, toward him. They met in the center of the room, under 1,000 lights and 100 curious eyes. But to Bella, it felt like they were alone again, just like that night. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. She stepped into his arms, and he wrapped her in a hug so full, so sure, it melted every last doubt. Her walls didn't just crack, they collapsed. In that moment, everything made sense. Love didn't always begin the right way. Sometimes it arrived wrapped in mistakes and missteps. But when it's real, it finds you anyway. Not when you're ready, but exactly when you need it most.